Good afternoon, distinguished guests, moderators, panelists, and attendees. I'm Cheryl Hayles, executive member of the Voices of Olympia Canada board. I have the honor and privilege of representing this incredible board, a committed group of people who believe a better world for women and girls is possible. Our esteemed founder and executive director, Dr. Savory, sends her best regards to you all. We're here at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women session to unpack the intersection of feminization of poverty with education, supportive infrastructures, and the downward spiral of gender-based violence. UNCSW is the principal global intergovernmental body exclusively dedicated to the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Given the purpose of UNCSW, it is appropriate that we as civil society gather here today to examine the current status of women and girls. This is a larger issue than 2 hours will allow us to unpack. However, our panel of youth delegates from the Voices of Olympia Canada school competition will address this issue through their lens. Before we begin our conversation, we take this moment to acknowledge the truth and the resilience of the Indigenous people upon whose territory we are broadcasting from. This parallel event is sponsored by Olympes de la Parole Canada, Voices of Olympia Canada, VOOC. It is a global citizenship initiative focused on learning, followed by purposeful action. Through a school competition, it encourages secondary school students to reflect on the central theme of gender inequalities and their impact on the empowerment of women and girls from a human rights perspective. This year's competition has 11 teams that will present in 3 sessions over the course of UNCSW 68. We as a global community must acknowledge that during the COVID-19 pandemic, technology rapidly transformed the world of education and reinforced the digital gender divide in terms of accessibility, literacy, and security. Our advocacy for women and girls in all aspects of society must include education success goals for digital literacy, accessibility to technology, and security in digital spaces to create empowerment and be a catalyst for achieving gender equality. Today's session is a perfect example of girls' empowerment through digital literacy. The education institutions which they attend, the opportunity offered by Olympes de la Parole Canada, and the platform provided by UNCSW 68 make it possible for our panelists to engage in this important human rights conversation. I encourage us to look beyond the privilege represented here and ask ourselves if every girl, every woman has the same education opportunity and infrastructure to empower them to self-actualize. If not, we have work to do. The undeniable reality is that women and girls still face undue hardship reflected on a sliding scale of educational opportunities based on where they were born or the privilege into which they were born. Our mandate as a global community is to advocate for and insist on infrastructure which provides equal opportunity to quality education for all women and girls in safe and diverse contexts. Women and girls are targeted by online bullying and harassed at a higher rate than men and boys. Therefore, we must have an integrated system for protection and safety in the digital space. As technologies change, the infrastructure to support education must evolve to benefit all and allow for safe engagement with these new technologies. The UN Secretary General's report entitled accelerating the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls by addressing poverty and strengthening institutions and financing with a gender perspective, provides an overview and recommendations for consideration to realize gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls for the full, effective, and accelerated implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action in the 2030 Agenda. In the SG's report, education is not specifically noted and must have priority in public investments as we recognize the intersectionality of gender, education, race, poverty, and violence. In our work to accelerate the achievement of gender equality, ensure the empowerment of women and girls, eradicate poverty, and strengthen institutions through financing with a gender perspective, we must insist on education. The logarithm to such an outcome are the following actions: integrating a gender perspective into commitments on education for women and girls, strengthen public institutions of education for accountability, ensure safe infrastructure for meaningful participation of women and girls, increase the quality and availability of multidimensional gender-based poverty data, and create new strategies for increased education outcomes to support the reduction of poverty and its correlation to gender-based violence. The work that we do as individuals or organizations cannot be done in isolation. There must be a connection between members of civil society to strengthen the call for action in the implementation process for universal education and supportive infrastructures geared toward the elimination of gender-based violence. Like a magnificent cloth on the loom, each thread has its unique strength and beauty, which contributes to the overall cohesiveness of the fabric. We at Voices of Olympic Canada weave this concept of collaboration between civil society organizations into our operating principles. One of our associations is with the Conference of Non-Government Organizations, CoNGO. It is now my great pleasure to introduce a friend of Voices of Olympia Canada. He is a champion of social justice and gender equality. Mr. Cyril Ritchie was president of CoNGO from 2011 to 2018. He is currently CoNGO's first vice president with a term from 2018 to 2025. Mr. Ritchie has a distinguished bio, and so I will make it short for the purposes of today, but please note that there's much more than what I have to say. Cyril has participated in a large number of United Nations World Conferences and summits, including Food in Rome, Habitat in Vancouver and Istanbul, Environment and Development in Rio, Women in Nairobi, Nutrition in Rome, Social Development in Copenhagen, Sustainable Development in Johannesburg and Rio, World Summit on the Information Society in Geneva. Cyril has been engaged in NGO and civil society liaison and advocacy mechanisms with many United Nations agencies and entities. And I will name just a few here because the list is very long in his distinguished career. Inter alia with ECOSOC, UNHCHR, UNHCR, WSIS Forum, and more. Cyril participates regularly in many annual recurring UN commissions and sessions. Cyril has been for 6 years a visiting professor at Kyunghee University in Seoul. He is a member or advisor inter alia of the Academic Council on the UN System Civicus, the International Baby Food Action Network, and the World Future Council. Cyril is currently based in Geneva and has visited 90 countries. Welcome, Cyril.
Thank you very, very much, Cheryl. As I have been asked by Saudi to make my statement in French, I shall now do so. Mes chers amis, nous sommes en 2024 et dans beaucoup d'endroits au monde, les femmes sont encore pauvres parce qu'elles sont femmes et n'ont pas le même accès à l'économie que les hommes. Dans beaucoup d'endroits au monde, les femmes sont encore en mauvaise santé parce qu'elles sont femmes et n'ont pas le même accès aux soins que les hommes. Et dans beaucoup d'endroits au monde, des femmes subissent encore la violence, le viol, la maltraitance même au sein de leur foyer, parce qu'elles sont femmes et sont considérées par certains hommes comme étant à leur disposition. Et dans beaucoup d'endroits au monde, des femmes rencontrent encore de la discrimination à l'école ou devant la justice, parce que le patriarcat y gouverne encore. Je brosse ce sombre tableau devant vous, les jeunes de plusieurs écoles canadiennes, car c'est vous qui allez changer le monde. C'est vous qui devez lutter contre ce patriarcat encore trop solidement implanté dans l'économie, dans la gouvernance, dans certains cours de justice et surtout dans certaines mentalités. Le progrès énorme qui a été fait ces dernières décennies pour faire valoir les droits des femmes est réjouissant, mais c'est encore loin d'être suffisant. Le système des Nations Unies, avec ses multiples agences, entités et départements, et à travers, entre autres, ses conventions et pactes, le système des Nations Unies a été un fer de lance pour le progrès des droits des femmes. Mais ces mêmes conventions et pactes sont, dans trop de pays et trop souvent, laissés sur les rayons, voire guère appliqués. Ce sont de très nombreuses ONG, les organisations non gouvernementales, les OSC, les organisations de la société civile, qui s'affairent à longueur d'année par leurs plaidoyers inlassables pour convaincre des gouvernements à respecter leurs engagements, ça veut dire à tenir leurs promesses dans ce domaine. Je vous encourage donc, vous les jeunes, lorsque vous entrez dans la vie postscolaire, d'apporter votre appui aux Nations Unies et aux ONG travaillant dans ces domaines. La route vers la justice sociale est encore longue et sinueuse. Faites de votre mieux pour arriver au bout. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur Ritchie. Thank you, Cyril, for your very outstanding support for the school competition, your experience and your travels around the world and the work that you have done over the years make you a uniquely qualified person to comment on the status of women in the current day. So thank you so much for joining us today. We enjoy hearing you share those thoughts. Now I would like to introduce our moderator, Lynne Barrett-Carrier. Lynne Barrett-Carrier is a former field supervisor, faculty of education, McGill University, and a retired secondary school teacher after 42-year teaching career in Montreal, Quebec, with the English Montreal School Board. Lynne has taught English language arts, among other subjects, leading workshops for fellow colleagues and working on projects with the Ministry of Education of Quebec. Lynne holds a certificate from the Outstanding Teacher Program, Olympes, International Center for Leadership in Teaching and Learning, as well as a BA and Diploma in Education from McGill University. In addition, she served for many years on the executive of the Montreal Teachers Association and the Quebec Provincial Association of Teachers, a teacher board of directors, and their adult education committees, and is a member of the Quebec Writers Federation and the Sweet Adelines International. Lynne continues to promote and support the advancement towards a more just and inclusive society. She is a serving member of the board of directors for Voices of Olympia Canada. She is currently in her second year of her two-term service. And Lynne has been a moderator of the UNCSW. She moderated last year, and we're very pleased that she agreed to moderate again this year. Over to you, Lynne.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for that very fine introduction. And please let me extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you this afternoon. It is both an honor and a privilege for me to return as the moderator for this UN CSW 68 session, examining the feminization of poverty with education, supportive infrastructures, and the downward spiral of gender-based violence. In this afternoon session, we will hear from 3 presenters on this topic, each having a further specific topic. Each presenter will be giving a presentation of 15 minutes in length, followed by a short question period. The audience will be invited to register their questions in the chat at the end of each presentation. Now, please allow me to introduce one of our Voices of Olympia Canada ambassadors, Harmonie Toscane Pierre Delhaye, who will be serving as our panelist today. Harmonie Toscane Pierre Delhaye is a third-year student at Paris 1 Panthéon Sorbonne University, completing a double bachelor's degree in law and political science. In tandem with her studies, Harmonie Toscane is passionate about being involved in her community and campaigning for women's rights, which is why she first joined the UN Women section of the Association de la Sorbonne pour les Nations Unies, and then became its vice president. With the objective of giving back to her community and raising awareness about gender-based inequality and violence, she has also been a VOOC ambassador for the past 3 years. Before becoming a VOOC ambassador, Harmonie Toscane herself participated in VOOC's second edition of the competition in 2019, representing the Collège International Marie de France, CIMF, and won first place with her team. After researching the subject of the feminization of poverty and its consequences on women's empowerment and girls' development, Harmonie Toscane and her team implemented a project called Raconte to address this issue within her community. Raconte is a workshop occurring fortnightly in partnership with a parents' association located in a multicultural and unfavored neighborhood in Montreal. The workshop consists of reading books, mainly about gender equality, to allophone students. While the workshop was first animated by the VOOC team of CIMF, some volunteers were quickly oriented and recruited to ensure the sustainability of the project. In the years to come, Harmonie Toscane wishes to pursue her academic studies in public law and public policy, hoping one day to work in the sector of public policy at the international level. As well, for Harmonie Toscane, her dreams and goals would be incomplete should she not pursue her passion, dance, alongside her academic and professional career. So welcome, Harmonie Toscane. It is such a pleasure for me to moderate this afternoon's session with you as a panelist, as you are already so well-versed on this important theme we will be exploring, the intersection of poverty and gender-based violence. What are your thoughts as we prepare to listen to our presenters?
So hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Ms. Barrett-Carrier, for your introduction, and the pleasure is shared. To answer your question, well, indeed, when I myself participated to the Voices of Olympia Canada contest in 2019, the subject I worked on with my team was about the impact of the feminization of poverty on women's empowerment and girls' development. What I learned back then is that education is the essential key in order to break the vicious circle of poverty. The issue of the feminization of poverty is still very much central today. It is sad, but it is true. But I am glad to see that girls are still working together in order to find solution to this issue. I am thrilled, and I can't wait to hear the perspective of the youth on the subject, and I hope so are you. We will now listen to the different proposals that the youth has for us, and our first presenter will be Crystal Gillespie, the delegate from the Bishop Strachan School, who will now focus on the intersections between poverty, the housing crisis, and gender-based violence in Toronto. Crystal, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Ms. Harmonie Toscane. My name is Crystal Gillespie, and I am representing my team from the Bishop Strachan School. I would first like to thank the NGO-CSW 68 and Voices of Olympia Canada for giving me the opportunity to speak at this conference today and for giving me this opportunity to speak on this ongoing issue of gender-based violence in Toronto, specifically on the intersections of poverty and the housing crisis with the feminization of poverty. I would also like to thank my team members, Bernice Tang, Dora Chen, and Brianni Chan, as well as my supporting teacher, Ms. Gravina, for working alongside me to talk about this ongoing issue. So moving on to the next slide. Panel, gender-based violence is prevalent in countries that we have statistics for, no matter what laws are implemented. In my presentation today, I will be talking about the intersections between poverty, the housing crisis, and gender-based violence in Toronto. On the topic of poverty, the feminization of poverty is a serious area to discuss. According to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, the feminization of poverty is when the chances of women becoming more poor is larger than that of men, and that their poverty is more severe than that of men. This is due to many systemic issues that can be seen in many different spaces, whether it's in the workforce with larger gender pay gaps or when it comes to paid leave. In fact, according to the World Bank, 90% of 193 world economies have legal differences restricting women's ability to access property, which is a clear example of the feminization of poverty. So moving on to the next slide, now let's talk about the housing crisis. So there's a very severe housing crisis in Toronto currently, as we have seen a large increase in the prices of renting a home. The average rent is $2,700, according to Zumper, which is 42% higher than the national average. Over the last 2 years, we have also had spaces ranging from $2,000 to $6,000 per month. This is important to understand because when we look at women experiencing violence at home, we see many of them being unable to rent homes or spaces due to the inflation and high costs that we see in our society today. According to the City of Toronto, the median income of single-parent economic families in Toronto earn about $71,500 before taxes, meaning that each month they are earning $5,958. So now let's drop that by 25% to account for the taxes. So now they're earning about $53,625 per year, meaning that now they're earning $4,469 per month. At this point, rent becomes more than 50% of take-home pay. Dr. Carrie McElroy, a journalist that we interviewed, have also said, women have always been in a precarious position economically. There was no social safety net, which is a clear representation of this situation where women will remain in dangerous relationships to sustain housing for themselves and for their children, even if that means that they are in an abusive relationship. On top of that, if women do choose to leave their abusive relationship and not rent a home, there's little to no access to shelters. For example, according to the Canadian Women's Foundation, women who identify as Indigenous, are immigrants, identify as LGBTQ+, have mental health or substance abuse issues, or have disabilities, have a lot of trouble finding accessible places to live in due to many restraints and barriers. So moving on to the next slide. Through this, we are able to see many causes and effects when it comes to poverty and the housing crisis. and how these specifically impact women. In my community, Toronto, we see gender-based violence having a serious impact on them. On a national level, according to the Canadian Women's Foundation, we see that 36% of people experiencing homelessness in Canada are women identified. On top of that, 90% of families using emergency shelters are headed by these single women. Panel, partner and family violence is the key pathway into homelessness for women and girls. And with the rising inflation working hand in hand with previous gender inequalities, this percentage is likely to increase. So moving on to the next slide, our main idea for project implementation is having a full-day conference where we educate and spread awareness on gender-based violence to certain groups of people within our school system, which is the VOOC School Board, also known as the Coalition of Single-Sex Independent Schools of the Greater Toronto Area. Throughout the conference, we are looking to provide a speaker that is an expert or scholar in gender-based violence and is from our community, which is Toronto. This will allow for students attending to be able to see what gender-based violence is like inside of our community and the seriousness and impact that this issue has in the environment around them. This will also provide a perspective of this issue in which statistics and facts may be presented by our speaker who has a deeper knowledge of Toronto. We are also looking to emphasize how gender-based violence may affect the feminization of poverty and make it ultimately worse. We will also make sure to have consolidation periods in between, as this topic may be something hard for all attendees, and these consolidation periods will include reflection with both other students from VOOC schools who are attending, as well as the attendees' own school peers and supervisors. These consolidation periods are mainly for students to reflect and grow from what they've learned and brainstorm what they can do with the information they have obtained in this conference and how they can make an impact in not only their school, but in their own community. My team and I, alongside a partner school, will also be very involved in this process. We will be doing the organizational aspect, as well as presenting the causes and effects of gender-based violence and how it applies to our community and our schools, as well as emphasize the impact and the importance of recognizing this issue. So moving on to the next slide. So when we're asked the question on why we're implementing this, or how this will be effective or impactful, we have a clear answer. According to the Canadian Women's Foundation, anyone from any gender, race, or circumstance can be in an abusive situation where they can experience violence, but women and girls are the ones who are most victimized in these scenarios, and the abusers are oftentimes men. After learning about this statistic, we realized how important it is to bring young men of school age into these conversations and this awareness. We know that in our VOOC School Board, there are also many single-gendered male peer schools. Therefore, when it comes to spreading awareness and educating others on this issue, we believe that this topic should specifically be introduced at both male and female schools. So moving on to the next slide, to implement this inter-school conference, we're looking to get schools to join by promoting this conference via email and talking about the importance of education on gender-based violence and its intersections with poverty and the housing crisis. On top of that, we are also looking to work alongside the Voices of Olympia Canada team to conduct this conference. They will be facilitating and organizing activities within this conference, promoting this conference to more audiences, recruiting speakers, as well as providing us with constant feedback so we are always improving and making this experience one that is impactful. So our next slide would be a video of our presentation or of our project. Gender-based violence can happen to anyone. But with the feminization of poverty and the housing crisis that we see and face in our society today, it is impacting women at the extreme. To catalyze change, we must begin within our own community, leveraging available resources. In our case, that would be the schools within our school system. Our conference project would look something like this. Students will start by listening to a speaker who has done extensive research on gender-based violence in Toronto and how that affects women as the feminization of poverty worsens. Then our team will be presenting our analysis of the situation, providing facts and statistics to allow students to gain awareness about the situation. Lastly, we will have consolidation time, where teams will brainstorm ways they can prevent or help this ongoing issue in small ways within their own community. Our team has also actively sought feedback from various stakeholders, including our physical education instructor, who suggested making this topic more engaging by using movie examples to illustrate consent dynamics. This approach aims to educate audiences about recognizing signs of gender-based violence. Panel, when we start by analyzing the stem of this issue, we can improve this issue by great amounts. And in our eyes, by creating this conference, we are able to create an impact in our own community. So in terms of testimonials and validation, we've received many from our gender studies teacher at the Bishop Strachan School, who fully supports our solution, saying that diverse voices are needed at the table. We've also received validation from writer and journalist with a focus on histories of women and trauma in society, sexual violence, gender-based violence, and misogyny, Dr. Carrie McElroy, who has said, "This is an extremely worthy project, and it's admirable that girls at this age of high school are doing such deep dives into complex socioeconomic and cultural factors of feminism. Both the economics of gender and poverty on the local level and the continuation of gender-based violence are topics that are highly important for teen girls and boys to be exposed to. The initiatives of this team towards a conference for Toronto private schools are a very good idea and can become an annual event that changes the community." On top of that, we've also received validation from Dr. Elena Olibet, who is a gender studies expert, that said, "This project recognizes that education on gender-based poverty and violence from an early stage is a crucial step for the improvement of future living conditions of teen girls and boys. It deserves to be supported." Our team is very grateful for all of the testimonials and validation that was provided. So moving on to the next slide, throughout the VOOC competition, after researching and exploring about this ongoing issue, my team and I have learned a lot about gender issues in both our community and in Canada in Canada overall. As students who are very passionate about equal rights for women, researching this topic has allowed us to better understand the intersections between poverty, the housing crisis, and the experience of women living in abusive households. The message we would like to leave you all is to spread awareness, stand up, and create an impact for the topics you want to see change in. So going on to the last slide, once again, thank you to my team, Brianni Chan, Dora Chen, and Bernice Tang, our teacher supervisor, Ms. Gravina, our school, the Bishop Strachan School, Voices of Olympia Canada, and the Ngo-Csw 68 for providing me with the opportunity to come and present today.
Thank you very much, Crystal, for your presentation. I will now invite our moderator, Ms. Barrett-Carrier, to pose her question to our first presenter, while inviting also the audience to register their own questions in the chat.
So thank you very much, Harmonie Toscane. I would like to pose two questions to you, Crystal, to try and even get a better understanding of what your project is going to be about. Like, what obstacles do you foresee facing during the implementation of your project?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think the main obstacle that we might face while implementing this project would be gaining or receiving the participation that we would like to see, because we know that gender-based violence can be a very hard topic and serious topic to talk about, and may also be a pretty difficult topic for students and high school students to speak up about or spread awareness on. So students may not want to attend due to like being uncomfortable with this topic, but we believe that is attending these conferences and gaining the most participation would mean that we would have the most impact, and with more participants, we would have more impact through this conference. And we have thought of a few solutions to combat this.
So what would those solutions be?
Yeah, so we have three solutions. One solution would be really spreading awareness and emphasizing the importance and urgency of gender-based violence, especially in Toronto and in our community. And on top of that, we will also be collaborating with other COSOT school boards and other COSOT schools to really bring different schools together to talk about this ongoing issue. And on top of that, we will also be collaborating with the Voices of Olympia Canada, where they will also be advertising and promoting this conference. So then we will be able to gain more participants and really spread the urgency of this issue. And we also believe that the more participants that we receive, the better, because if we receive around 100, 200 students, that can really make a really big impact, because when they take in the information from this conference, such as how to prevent gender-based violence or how to identify gender-based violence, they can use that information in their own lives, in their own community, and in their own schools, and that can provide a very, very big impact. So that's why we're trying to aim for as many participants as we can.
Excellent answers. Thank you, Crystal, for those very insightful and detailed answers. Back to you, Harmonie Toscane.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Barrett-Carrier, for those very thought-provoking questions, and to Crystal, of course, for your detailed answers. I will now invite our second presenter, the delegate from the study team C, Katarina Robinson, who will now focus on the intersection of the feminization of poverty with domestic violence and the economic empowerment of women living in rural areas in Quebec. Katarina, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Harmonie Toscane. Good morning. I would like to thank the Ngo-Csw, CSW 68, and Voices of Olympia Canada for the opportunity to present my team's project in this Parallel Events Forum and to amplify the voices of the youth. My name is Katarina Robinson. I am a 17-year-old grade 11 student from the study school in Montreal, Canada, and considering the UN CSW priority theme of feminization of poverty, my team and I have worked on the intersection of domestic violence with the economic empowerment of women residing in rural areas, under the supervision of Ms. Amelia Liogis and Madame Marie-France Sénécal. First and foremost, it is essential that I define key terms referred to throughout my presentation. Intimate partner violence, or IPV, is the primary branch of domestic violence we have explored. Although IPV presents itself in a myriad of forms, my team has placed a particular focus on financial and digital abuse. According to UN Women, technological abuse is harm that is committed or amplified using digital tools. Defined by Women's World Banking, economic abuse involves the control of finances, monetary rewards, or punishment of women due to their social, economic, or political condition. Moreover, domestic violence is a heavily gendered issue. According to Oxfam International, globally, 245 million women and girls were subject to IPV in 2018. Nationally, according to a report published by Statistics Canada in 2020, the proportion of women killed by an intimate partner is over 8 times greater than that of men. A 2022 report by the Canadian Feminicide Observatory for Justice and Accountability revealed 1 woman is killed every 48 hours, majoritarily at the hands of men. On a provincial scale, the Quebec Institute of Statistics conducted an IPV survey ranging from 2021 to 2022, revealing 26% of men aged 18 and over who have been in relationships experienced at least one form of IPV, whereas for women, that percentage is 40%. Although domestic abuse is a clear violation of human rights for all genders, we wish to shift focus to the main victims, women. Furthermore, domestic abuse has a higher prevalence in rural areas compared to urban areas. According to a CFUW Rural Women Survey held in 2018, when questioning 84 community organizations who serve the women within remote rural communities in Canada, Rwanda, India, the US, and one native band, 94.5% of respondents answered yes to the question, are there incidents of gender-based violence within the community? Notably, 26.5% responded yes to the question, is there sufficient support and information in the community for women experiencing violence? In Canada, according to a report published in 2021 by Western Centre for Research Against Women and Domestic Violence Against Women and Children, rates of IPV experienced by rural women were 75% higher than urban women. A study conducted by the National Institute of Public Health of Quebec revealed our target community, Côte-Nord, a vast rural region in eastern Quebec, held the highest prevalence of domestic violence in Quebec in 2014. Following our meeting with Hélène Lillier, coordinator for Maison des Femmes in Bécomo, Côte-Nord, we selected the abused women of Côte-Nord as our target community, as their struggles echo those of abused rural women in Canada. The interviews with shelters brought to our attention the poverty domestically abused women face following the departure from their situation. let us now examine the unique risk factors of domestically abused rural women in Canada with a report published by Statistics Canada in 2020. Interestingly, geographic isolation is responsible for the sheer level of difficulty rural women face when attempting to escape their abusive partner. Their isolation is caused by lower availability to housing and abuse services, inaccessible road systems, and lack of transportation. Returning to the international level, in the CFUW Rural Women's Survey, respondents identified the lack of economic empowerment of rural women as a significant barrier to the achievement of gender equality within the community. These abundant limitations render the heightened rates of IPV in Canadian rural areas extremely comprehensible. Furthermore, we have concluded in Côte-Nord, heightened rates of domestic violence and economic vulnerability reinforce one another to entrench women and young girls in a vicious cycle of poverty. The following information was pulled directly from our interviews with Hélène Millier in Bécomo, Côte-Nord, and Patricia Lizotte, SAC for Santé de Services Sociaux for all of Côte-Nord. Given their dispersion across the vast territory of Côte-Nord, in-person services are not easily accessible for all women. Certain areas are without proper roads and public transportation. Moreover, the financial independence of abused women in Côte-Nord is challenged by economic inequities, such as the gender pay gap. Reported by Statistics Canada in 2016, the total income of women in Côte-Nord was $16,600 less than that of men in Côte-Nord. In fact, the town of Bécomo presents the highest salary difference between men and women in Côte-Nord. Ms. Millier states that in Bécomo, economic abuse and intimate partner violence go hand in hand, explaining that abusive men take advantage of their more pronounced salary, using it to financially overpower their partner. She regularly observes situations where women are repeatedly harassed by their abusive partner at work. As a result, they are fired, given they do not wish to expose their situation to their employer. Furthermore, Ms. Lizotte mentions many women wait till they have secured a steady income to officially break away from their abusive partner. Achieving this level of financial autonomy can be extremely difficult by oneself. The intersection of geographic isolation, financial setbacks resulting from economic abuse, and overall heightened rates of domestic violence render the financial autonomy of these women particularly fragile. In response to this important issue, we have created a twofold solution. The first prong consists of a website named Flovia. Despite being disguised as a period tracker, it is centered around financial literacy. Through research, our team has come to understand a significant gender gap in financial literacy exists in Canada. Our website provides simplified financial tips from professional financial advisors and advice on how to budget, invest, and save one's money. Equally, it contains a financial self-assessment quiz, encouraging women to examine their current economic situation. Since the safety of these women is our top priority, we have coded a quick exit button that will leave the website and bring the user to the weather network of Côte-Nord, masking the search history. We were made aware all shelters in Côte-Nord have stable connections, permitting sheltered women to access Flovia. Part 2 of our solution tackles technological abuse. We have created an inconspicuous Wi-Fi router that allows women to circumvent the home network monitored by the abusive partner and create a parallel network. Through the router, they may freely browse the internet and access our website. It acts as a second chance for abused women whom cannot permanently seek shelter in the shelters in Côte-Nord due to their geographic isolation. Both prongs work towards expanding women's financial knowledge, allowing them to create financial cushioning and avoid facing poverty upon departure from their situation. We have received support from shelters in Montreal and in Côte-Nord. We are currently developing our partnership with Maison des Femmes in Bécomo and have received encouragement from financial professionals such as Henry Tin, a finance manager at McGill University here in Montreal. As for our plan of implementation, our tech team, Sophie and Ariana, will be working on updating the programming of our website. in terms of community relations, Kenny Kashishian will be interviewing the shelters in Forestville, Sept-Îles, and Fermont, and in the future, other rural areas in Canada. The shelters in Côte-Nord have been tasked with distributing the routers to the women they deem are within capacity of safely utilizing it at home. Along with the promotion of our project, Voices of Olympia Canada will aid our team in distributing the Wi-Fi routers to the shelters in Côte-Nord. We will now present our video slide. Our topic is the intersection of domestic violence with the empowerment of women and young girls in rural areas.
To resolve the financial issue of battered rural women, we have decided to create a twofold solution.
The first part of our solution is a portable, tiny Wi-Fi router. This Wi-Fi extension would permit women to safely browse the internet without leaving any digital trace. This would be disguised in a period box. In the box, there would also be a pamphlet explaining how to make the router work in 4 simple steps. The second part of our solution is a financial literacy website.
We are offering in this website how to create rainy day savings, learning the 50-30-20 rule, professional financial advice, a Q&A section, and access to simplified financial advice.
We have coded a quick exit button to delete all search history.
It's an incredibly important mission. Building financial literacy resources for women specifically, especially women who have been in situations where there's been financial abuse or they just haven't had the opportunity to build financial literacy.
Ce que je dis, c'est dans le fond, les solutions que vous apportez, soit votre site Internet ou même la chose de Wi-Fi, ça peut servir à toutes les femmes du Québec.
Armed with financial literacy, women and young girls will be empowered to overcome the shackles of poverty and acquire the financial confidence to create a better future for themselves and for their children. On behalf of our study team, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Katarina, for your presentation. Once more, I will invite our moderator, Ms. Lynne Barrett-Carrier, to pose her questions to you, while also inviting the audience to register their question in the chat. Ms. Barrett-Carrier.
Thank you. Thank you, Harmonie Toscane. Thank you, Katarina. And I have a few questions that I would like to ask you to help us have a little more understanding about your project. First of all, how do you envision Flovia answering the needs of women encountering gender-based violence in rural areas?
So we wish that Flovia is another option for these women to build their financial knowledge, since many of the women we've observed in Côte-Nord feel stuck because they are geographically isolated, have a lack of transportation, and even some areas of Côte-Nord are without police surveillance. So we wish that Flovia provides them another option to build their knowledge of their financial situation, as we said, to assess their situation, and to take the next step in investing and saving their money to, as mentioned from Ms. Lizotte, she's the SAC of Santé des Services Sociaux for all of Côte-Nord, women wait till they have secured a financial income to then break away from their abusive partner. So doing that by themselves is extremely difficult. We wish to help them do that with our Flovia website, so they may take the lead from their situation with this knowledge and this backing and avoid falling into poverty.
And the second question is a little bit of a technical question. How are you and your team producing the Wi-Fi routers? And how many do you think that you will have initially to distribute in Côte-Nord?
So since we are partnering, the first shelter we're partnering with is Côte-Nord, is Bécomo, Maison des Femmes. Their shelter capacity is around 18 women. So we are preparing 18 Wi-Fi routers. The cost of one Wi-Fi router at the moment is $3, but our tech team, Ariana and Sophia, are currently working on bringing the prices down. So we would like to send out around 18 Wi-Fi routers to test, and hopefully we can produce more and send more if they're reporting that it helps and that they would require more. We are also waiting for more partnerships. So hopefully once those are secured, we can send more.
Wonderful. So you're producing these in-house?
Yes, we have a prototype that we showed in the video. Our tech team is very advanced. In fact, from one meeting we had, SOS Violence Conjugale, they mentioned they were having trouble with creating the quick exit button, and that they were actually surprised study students were able to bring our website level to that extent of digital advancement. So
bravo, bravo. So thank you very much, Katarina, for those very perceptive and pertinent answers. And back to you, Harmonie Toscane.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Lynne Barrett-Carrier, and thank you very much, Katarina, for your answers and your very interesting and honestly fabulous project. I will now invite our third and final presenter, who is Sonya Liboria Bastiaans, the delegate from the English Montreal School Board's Laurier Macdonald High School, who will now focus on women's economic and social disadvantages that affect the upbringing of women and girls, increasing the risk of perpetuating the cycle of poverty. Sonya Liboria, you may go.
You are Harmonie Toscane. Good afternoon, Voices of Olympia Canada members and participants. I would like to start by thanking the NGO CSW 68 for giving us the opportunity to present here today. My name is Sonya Liboria Bastiaans, and I am representing the Laurier Macdonald High School VOOC team. My teammates are Donatessa Delisi, Aaliyah Foco, Leila Grosso, and Jana Vigna. Our specific topic that I will be focusing on is women's economic and social disadvantages that affect the upbringing of young women and girls, increasing the risks of perpetuating the cycle of poverty. According to research done by the National Longitudinal Survey of Children and Youth, developed by Statistics Canada in 2022, persistent socioeconomic disadvantages have a negative impact on the outcomes of many Canadian children's lives, meaning that poverty does not only affect the parental figure, but also the child, causing the vicious cycle of poverty to carry on. Poverty can restrict children from achieving their full potential since their guardian may not be able to afford higher education or the proper resources for their child to succeed. Once again, this causes the vicious cycle of poverty to continue. Based on our interview with Mr. Pietro Bozzo, the director of La Maison de la Famille de Saint-Léonard, the parents will try to conceal their financial situation from their child, but the child notices it through interactions at school once they start comparing themselves to their peers. And that is where they realize that unfortunately they are economically disadvantaged. 2011 statistics from the Réseau Québécois d'Action pour la Santé des Femmes claim that 66% of female groups suffer from mental health issues due to socioeconomic disadvantages in Quebec. In the majority of cases, poverty does not only cause monetary issues, but also mental health issues, causing additional issues, addictions, and overall struggles to people who find themselves in poverty. Parental figures are supposed to be the example to their child, and if a parental figure has a tendency to reproduce a habit, the child can take that habit and reproduce it themselves and continue the cycle of poverty. While conducting our research, we focused on why the cycle of poverty continues and what the contributing factors and outcomes of this harsh cycle of economic disadvantages are. According to World Vision Canada 2023, the cycle of poverty starts the moment a child is born into a poor family. What happens next is that throughout the child's life, their parents will often have sparse access to resources that would help them advance in life, leaving them to continue the cycle of poverty. According to World Vision International 2023, these are the 5 key factors that contribute to the continuation of this cycle. Access to quality education can confine the child to a small number of opportunities for acquiring new knowledge and skills, contributing to the intergenerational transmission of poverty. Unemployment and underemployment can trap those involved in a cycle of poverty, since low income makes it hard to have economic stability. Poor health, frequently a result of limited access to good health care, food, and proper living conditions, can impede an individual's ability to get employed and obtain income. Intergenerational transmission of poverty. So when a child is born into a poor family, they have restricted access to resources that would benefit their development overall, putting up a wall, blocking the individual from climbing over and freeing themselves from a vicious cycle of poverty. Discrimination and social exclusion, sprouting from factors such as race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or disability, can prevent certain individuals or groups from participating in economic or social activities, keeping them in the loop of economic disadvantages. Execute our research, we use two methods to ensure a secure investigation. We chose to utilize our unlimited access to the internet and to speak with local community organizations in our borough that work with families and individuals that are experiencing financial insecurity. Applying these two research methods allowed us to acquire international, national, and local information regarding the effects of persistent socioeconomic disadvantages on women and children. Overall, expanding our understanding of this cycle of poverty. By better understanding why the cycle continues, what factors contribute to it, and what effects socioeconomic disadvantages have on women and children, we were able to come to a conclusion that would help us in the creation of our solution. In our research, we've observed that the effects of socioeconomic disadvantages are far more than just financial insecurities. Financial instability is just the root of many other problems for someone who is struggling financially. These monetary issues have various influences on many other aspects of an individual's life, including restricted access to different schooling opportunities, limited access to adequate health care, etc. As a result, these burdens magnify the risks of perpetuating the cycle of poverty, as the following generation will not only inherit poverty, but also many social disadvantages. In our interviews, we were able to detect a common subject. Families in our borough follow a patriarchal structure where the women rely on their spouses financially. Not only does this prove a point of gender inequality, but also conveys that the women stay home while their spouses are the breadwinners, contributing to isolation and a lack of social engagement. Our solution is to de-isolate the mother, seeing that isolation can cause mental health issues and a lack of socialization. Engaging with others can allow for the women to socialize and connect with others who are in similar situations. Through these interactions, women can share what has helped them. For example, if they have organizations that they have benefited from, other women will be able to hear about them and gain firsthand information from someone who has used the services. Empowering women to be financially autonomous would also be part of our solution, as it would reduce gender inequality in their patriarchal family structures. It would encourage independent life choices, and it would boost their confidence and their self-esteem as they'll have something of their own. Our idea is to host a social gathering where women of different socioeconomic backgrounds and age groups would come together to share and connect with each other. There would be guest speakers and resources available to them to learn about for future use. Our event is called Empower Her Social Gathering, and it would be held at our school, Laurier Macdonald High School. There would be engaging guest speakers and advertisement and information for other resources that are available to anyone who is in need of them. We would also offer childcare service for mothers who don't have anywhere to bring their children during the event. We are planning to collaborate with local organizations, sponsors, and volunteers, and we plan to advertise Empower Her by utilizing social media, community flyers, and local outreach to spread the word about our event. After consulting with many people that are a part of our community, we have gotten supportive feedback from many, and these are some examples. We have gotten support from many members of our community. Madame Ngo-Csw, the organizer of the CLSC de Saint-Léonard, offered us human resources, materials, financial resources, and communication with other organizations to be able to reach our target audience. Mr. Pietro Bozzo, the director of La Maison de la Famille, offered to distribute flyers in the community center in St. Leonard to help us spread the word about our event. Ms. Chelsea, the principal of Laurier Macdonald High School, is allowing us to use the building to host Empower Her. And finally, Voices of Olympia Canada will assist with digital promotion and financial resources. Our team has learned several lessons from this experience. We have strengthened our teamwork and communication skills. We have developed advocacy skills by promoting the goal of our event. We have formed a sense of community engagement by getting involved with our community on a more social note. We have also gained valuable insights on the lives of impoverished families and insights on different cultures. The knowledge and skills that we have acquired throughout this entire experience will be irreplaceable and have allowed us to develop and grow as young women in society immensely. The message that we would like to leave with you today is unite, connect, or together we are stronger. I would now like to present a video of our project.
Hi everyone, I'm here to talk a little bit about the LMAC VOOC team and their solution. The idea is to bring isolated women of lower economic background together. It's called Empowering Her, a social gathering, coming together and empowering them, and more importantly, each other, letting them know they're not alone.
On behalf of our team from Laurier Macdonald, thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you very, very much, Sonya Liboria, for your presentation and for your project. Once again, I will now invite Ms. Lynne Barrett-Carrier, our moderator, to pose her questions to our final presenter, while inviting the audience to register their questions in the chat.
Thank you, Harmonie Toscane. I'm really looking forward to watching this project unfold, Sonya Liboria, and these are two questions that I have for you that I think will help us to have even a more understanding about your project. Would you consider holding the Empower Her event more than once to break the cycle of poverty? And if so, with what regularity?
Yes, this was something that my team and I have discussed. To help break the cycle of poverty, one social gathering will not do as much as regular events. So we are still undecided on how often we would like to do this event, but it will happen more than once.
Thank you. And how do you plan to institutionalize and organize the sustainability of your project long term?
We definitely plan on trying to continue to empower her after we leave high school, as right now we are still in secondary 4. So next year we will still be here to host Empower Her. We plan on continuing Empower Her by recruiting student volunteers who can continue what we've started, and Empower Her can continue to empower women.
Thank you, Sonya Liboria, for your very enlightened and poignant answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this afternoon's session. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our panelist, Harmonie Toscane Pierre Delhaye, for her excellent contribution to this session, and to congratulate each of our young presenters for their outstanding reports and dedication. In closing, I would like to thank you, our audience, very much for attending today's session, and to invite you to join us on March 12th and 13th for more informative and thought-provoking presentations from our young presenters from VOOC. We hope you join us then, and thank you once again.